Hello and welcome to the Seven Figure Conversations with Asa Leveaux show. I am your host, Asa Leveaux. I am so very honored and grateful for you being here, co-creating this opportunity for you and I in this moment. Why? Because let's just be clear, it's been very important that you showed up because this is being curated for you. Why do I say that? Because I get it. You are someone who has a business, desiring to go into business, and you're like, Asa, I don't have anyone in my circle that has created seven figures in their business, that actually has $1 million in their bank account. No one knows what that looks like where I'm from or who I'm around. And so it's getting kind of, let's just be honest, disgusting out here being motivated and finding inspiration at 3:18 in the morning when I'm doing my absolute best to make this dream a reality. And so I get that. And that is why Seven Figure Conversations is a thing. I am honored that, again, that you would even come. But no, you are in the right place at the right time for the right reason. And so to a little bit more about myself, again, Asa Leveaux, been an entrepreneur since I was 22. At this time of recording this particular show, I'll be 40 soon. 20 years military service, recipient of the Bronze Star, multiple books that I've written, 3 bestsellers, and I am known as the Icon Architect. Why? Because what I do for individuals is I provide luxury done for you solutions to experts who are ready to be icons in their industry. Speaking of which, you may already know this, but as of today, we are finally letting the world know that we have our Icon Bootcamp, which is our free virtual event happening on March 28th. So go to the show notes, register. It's completely no cost. Unless you want to upgrade to the virtual after party, which is available. And remember to get on one of our strategy calls, because one of our strategy coaches at the Wealth Spa will support you in that. But let me be very clear. Though I am excited and hyped about the Icon Bootcamp, I am even more about the individual that we have today. So if you are in the digital marketing space, if you are someone that understands that digital marketing, if you don't have any level of that in your business, based on your industry, of course, but I'm going to be very clear, about 90% strong in saying this, you're probably wrong. And so you need to have this conversation, at least under having a very strong reason why you're not in the digital ad space, the digital marketing space. And we have an individual that's going to support us in understanding why you need to consider being in that space if you're not, and how we can take strides forward in having digital marketing support us rather than annoy and frustrate us, as it sometimes does. So without further ado, I would love to introduce to you all Hernan. Thank you so much for coming on and saying yes. And I did say your name correctly, correct?
Yes, you did, Asa. Thank you
Okay,
so much.
no problem. So before we get into anything, I definitely want to understand more about the Hernan that we see before us, knowing that there was a Hernan that came way before, way before. So with that being said, when you were 7 years old, how did you see money in your own world? Like, how did you envision that it was even possible, or was it not possible in your mind?
Mm, I love that question. And let me preface this by saying that you said that you are almost 40, you're turning 40, you don't look like
40 in June, yes.
40 in June. Yeah, that's crazy. I was like, wow. Yeah, but that's yeah, let me say that first. Let me take that
Thank
out
you.
of the way. But yeah, so I'm originally from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I'm from a third world country, right? I'm from South America, and I grew up in a middle class family. Both my mom and my dad, they were professionals. My mom used to have a day job, work 8, 9, 10 hours a day. My dad used to do his own thing. They were both accountants, and money was so there was this double discourse in my house and in the dinner table at the dinner table when it comes to money, because my parents, they tried probably a couple of multi-level marketing companies, right? MLM companies and whatnot, back in their youth and whatnot, and then they decided to follow their careers. But the reality is that they got a lot of training and books and material that they got from these companies, right? So at a very young age, I was like 7, 8, 10 years old, and I had access to this library, these bookshelves of books like Think and Grow Rich and How to Influence People, how to make friends and influence people, and and emotional intelligence. So there's a lot of books on self-development. There's a lot of books on, on sales. There's a lot of books on business building. I remember that I was reading those books while, my friends at school, they were playing, football or whatever outside. They were playing video games. I was reading those books. So that made a big impact on the vision where I wanted to be, right? So I had to be really grateful for my parents to set the stage and just have that material there just hanging out, right? For somebody that would be interested in reading, just pick them up and read them. But at the same time, money was always tight at the same time. So I would hear my parents fight a lot over money. And funny enough, it's much more common right now, but back like 30 years ago, I'm 35, so 30 years ago and whatnot, my mom was the breadwinner. She was out there working 8, 10 hours a day as a professional. My dad wasn't. So it was like kind of this dynamic, this weird dynamic, right? They were trying to always be better. They had all of these books in their bookshelves and all that, which kind of opened my eyes to, okay, you need to think positive thoughts and you need to think that things are possible and all that. And at the same time, I was having this conversation. So I think that getting, being brought up, and then later in my life, I was able to, meet people, really wildly successful people, and work with them. And then I realized how different they think about things, about money, for instance, right? About business building, about wealth and prosperity. That was a big eye opening. So now in retrospective, I had this kind of dichotomy back in the day about success, wanting to be successful, but not experience success or the success that you would like. And that would create a lot of problems, internal and external problems at the dinner table. Does that make sense?
Most definitely. And a couple of things. Number one, you being from Buenos Aires, that whole South American origination. I appreciate that. One, because a lot of times people that are born in the United States or born in quote unquote the West make so many excuses about why they cannot do the very thing that they need to do. So I appreciate that, but also because next year's when I move to South America, I'm moving to Brazil. Shout out to Rio. I will be living there. So I'm that proud of mine. And then I've always wondered when I see entrepreneurs, whether they're creating something that was once in their mind, or MLM, or anything that is positioned to make their lives better in any way. I've always wondered what their children would one day turn out to be. So to see you answers one possibility of what that could look like. Of course, we know it doesn't always look that way. So I find that to be dope that you are surrounded by possibilities. And so since you were surrounded by those possibilities in those books, do you feel that you took action sooner than what you could have taken? Or do you feel like, I pretty much took action around all my peers and I was, 30 before I stepped out? What was that like for you?
That's a great question. And I think that in general, so the pandemic kind of taught all of us that working remotely, having a remote team is possible, right? But I was working on my own remotely, I don't know, since 2010, 2012, right? 2011. And I think that I took action much sooner than a lot of my peers because, everyone was like, finish your studies, go to university, get a job. That was like, the spiel. And that's what you had to do. And my parents did that. And everyone in my family did that. And all of my friends did that. So I did finish my studies and got a job. But I think I lasted like a year and a half on my day job, my full-time day job. Because the math that I did in my head was like, all right, if I spend 10 years here in this company, which by the way was a great company, was working near from home, was a great environment, but it was still, a day job. We still have a boss. So it's like, if I spend 10, 12, 15 years here, what could the outcomes be, right? I could be like a middle management position, something like that. All right, what would happen if I take the leap and if I dedicate the same amount of effort, 10, 12, 15 years to my own thing? Where could I be, right? And the reality is that was, and it wasn't an easy decision, first off, because my parents, I was living with them back in the day, I was 20 something. So I had to explain to them that train of thought, which was kind of weird for them. But also over the first 3 years, I would see my friends getting jobs and buying cars and getting promoted and increasing their salary. And I was like, oh man, should I go back and get a job? Should I go back, or should I stick to this entrepreneurial thing that I was still figuring out what it would be, right? So 10 years later, 11, 12 years later, right now I'm in a position where I founded several 7-figure companies. I'm in a position where I'm like, you see that hockey stick, right? You realize that, okay, well, this is going to be hard. My first company didn't make any money for 3.5 years, right? So I had to write articles on Fiverr. That's where I started back in the day. I started on Fiverr.com writing articles for $4 a pop just to put food on the table. So it was a long time coming until something kicked in and something, started working, and then we started getting our first customers and clients online, but that was a big leap, and it was a lot of faith over the first 2 to 3 years, because I didn't see anything. I was like, okay, should I go back, get a job? And hopefully, happily I didn't. I stick to the plan, and now, I'm in a completely different position that if I would have, just followed the traditional quote unquote advice. So, when the pandemic hit and everyone was like, oh, we're remote now and whatnot, I was like, yeah, we've been in a remote position. We've been in quarantine for the past 10 years, So anyways, that was quite a teaching moment there.
So I would not have thought that it would have been weird for the type of parents that you have, like how you starting a business and not going to university, how was that weird for them with the way they were in multi-level marketing and they had all these books? Yes, please explain that.
Yeah, that's it. That's actually interesting. So in retrospective, I think that again, my mom was the breadwinner. She would have a full-time job. So they gave it a shot to this, entrepreneurial thing, MLM type thing, and it didn't work for them for whatever reason. So they had to go out there. My mom had to go out there and get a job. And then my dad had his own accounting practice, and he didn't make a lot of money. Like, honestly, so my mom was the breadwinner. So I think that they were afraid that I would make the same mistakes that they made, right? So that was like, oh, wow, you need to get a job and you need to do this and you need to do that because we've been through this and it didn't work for us. So we're scared that it would not work for you. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. And because a lot of times as a parent, my son actually turns 17 next month. And as a parent and seeing other parents parenting, I've seen that so many of us, and I've been guilty of this at times, we parent from our fears. And so every single thing that we're scared to do or something that didn't go right, if our child desires the very thing that we failed at or that didn't work for us or someone that we're close to, we parent from that place. And that's so not supportive of who they are. As being, because they're not little versions of us, they're their own humans, their own beings. So I do get it. I get it. And with that being said, did that fear that was projected onto you, did that play a role in how you were at all stagnant in your early stages of business?
Yes. And I think that that's something that this doesn't necessarily goes away. Right. So this is something like as you scale, as you're building your business, like building a business, as you beautifully put it at the beginning of the show, it's a lonely process, right? Like most of the people that you surround yourself with, they're not successful entrepreneurs. Like you need to go out there and find those people. You need to go out there and make an effort to find that tribe, right? Which is otherwise you just get put in a place and then that's it, right? If you don't make an effort to find the tribe, then you don't find it, So I think that that was definitely the case. And the reality is that as you get more and more successful, you need to talk to people that are more successful than you. You need to talk to people that you need to find that tribe of people that are at your same level or even further, so that you can be mentor and whatnot. But you realize the power of mentoring and the power of that type of groups later down the road, right? After you stumble, after you realize, okay, well, I don't know everything and whatnot. So you need to keep those thoughts in check, and you need to actually make sure that you're always bringing in ideas and perspectives from people that are smarter than you, or for people that are seeing reality in a completely different way. Because those things, sometimes I caught myself thinking from a scarcity perspective, right? Or from what about the money, this type of this, that, the other thing, especially when you need to make a big investment, on hiring somebody or hiring an executive or joining a mastermind that, might be 5-figure investment. So it's like those fears are still there, but you learn to see them and you learn to, to acknowledge them. That's how you were brought up. But most importantly, you learn to get different perspectives from people that see reality in a completely different way. So you need to be on top of those things to actually, have a breakthrough and then go to the next level, if that makes sense.
And you are completely correct, because I recently joined a mastermind. And let me just say, that investment, baby, that is, ooh. But one thing about it, you operate from this new place of, okay, now not only do I have to take care of all of my existing expenses, but now I need to, be able to pay for what I invested in, so I can keep my word, so I can be in integrity with my yes, and be able to provide success, so that I'm like, okay, there's a reason why I'm still in this mastermind. Like, it makes sense. So completely understand that. And with your organization, Scale Driven, do you find yourself now being the person that is holding the proverbial hand of your clients into new possibilities, so that they can move over that level of fear and see what's truly available?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So, whenever you're providing services like Scale Driven, we do digital marketing for high ticket coaches, consultants, info product people, and whatnot. So we help them with their marketing, we help them with their ads, their funnels, their emails. We're basically, their partners to grow their revenue. And there's a lot of times that we hit those roadblocks because there is a mental roadblock on the person that we're helping, right? So we need to coach them outside, or me personally and my team and whatnot. We need to coach them outside of quote unquote our scope of service, right? Which is like, okay, well, there's some head trash here. All right. It has happened with a lot of our clients, where it's like they're stuck at this level, right? And they come to us because they want to go to the next level. But then once they understand what they need to do to get to the next level, that's where the fear kicks in. Right. So there's a lot of coaching, there's a lot of, hand holding, but there's a lot of support, and there's a lot of saying, listen, if you want to get to the next level, you cannot be doing this. Like, we get this amount of coaches, consultants that they might be doing, like they will be making like $1 million a year, right? And they want to go from $1 million to 5 or 10 million. And the first thing that we tell them is like, you can get to 7 figures with a good offer and with a small team and doing everything yourself, right? You can do that totally, 100%. You can do that with, like we like to say, you can do that with hustle and bubble gum, right? But once you go past that level, you want to go to 5 million, you want to go to 10 million. Okay, now you need to hire people. Now you need to have marketing systems. Now you need to have a sales team. So the ball game changes completely, right? So there's a lot of that work that we do with clients and for clients that it's outside of our scope, but it's needed, because otherwise, if the entrepreneur, the CEO doesn't change their mentality, doesn't update and self-actualize to that new paradigm, then nothing really happens. So
correct. And for those that are watching us right now, hearing us right now, co-creating this episode together, and they're thinking, okay, so Hernan has a company called, Scale Driven, and it sounds like he knows what he's talking about. He definitely understands where I may be at the moment, or where I was, because he used to write articles for Fiverr, so he gets it. He understands that maybe I am in the hustle and bubblegum mode and moment right now, but he just said that he has clients that are $1 million earners already, and they're doing their best to scale to 5 and 10. So is Hernan really for me? So how would you answer that particular question?
Yeah, that's a great question. And right now we're focusing on those clients, but I come from, again, as I mentioned, we've been through the whole kind of the whole spectrum, right, to get to this point, right? And as I mentioned, I started working on Fiverr for $4 a pop. The first time a complete stranger gave me money over the internet was on Fiverr, which was a big breakthrough, was a big moment for me. It was like, wow, somebody over the internet is giving me money for something, right? And then from there on out, like, it was so it doesn't matter the level where you're at, right? It doesn't matter if you're just starting out or if you're, making $2,000 a month or 3 or 5 or 10. It doesn't matter, right? Or it's just your first $500 a month. It doesn't really matter. What really helped me out was to try as much as possible to work with or for those people that were ahead of me, right? Where I wanted to be. And sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to join a mastermind. It might mean that you need to join like a membership, like a membership, right? That it could be like $50 a month or $100 a month or something like that. Or it can be that you need to add value to somebody else's life to the point that they really want to help you. So one of the things that really, allowed me to work with guys like Grant Cardone or guys like Frank Kern and advise the team of Tony Robbins and whatnot, it was that I was always looking for those people that were way ahead of me and trying to add as much value as possible to what they were doing. And they will look around and say, okay, well, now here's what you can do for me, right? Or here's how we can work together. Or even some people will take you under their wing and mentor you, until you get to that level. So I think that, being available and helpful is one of the best things that you can do, because that allows you to get to the next level wherever you're at right now. Now, with that being said, you need to aim to the next level and not many levels ahead of you, right? If you get mentored by somebody that's making 100 million a year, then the lingo, what they share, their experience you might not get any value out of that, right? So you want to join or get to the next level by joining forces with somebody or helping somebody that is, ahead of you, slightly ahead of you, so that you can accelerate that growth, if that makes sense.
Yes, it makes complete sense to me. I definitely remember being in a space where there was someone who was literally about to hit the billionaire status, and there are other $100 million earners. And one thing about it, they were having conversations that I was not smart enough. It just wasn't for me. So if you're talking about, creating generational wealth, because let me be very clear to everyone, that's a wonderful thing to talk about. That's a wonderful thing to make you stop scrolling on Instagram. But building generational wealth is not the same as getting, filling a program or filling your membership site. And especially when you're still working another job, or you just started your business, that is not the same conversation. It is not. When you're talking about, revocable trust and things of that nature, and here you are, you just learned what an LLC can truly do, or as a corporation, that's just a different level of conversation. And though it's great to see what's possible and hear what's possible, it won't support you the same way that maybe talking to Hernan and Hernan's team, where you just need to have some digital marketing possibilities to get to a point that scaling is possible. So that may be it. So with that said, before we start to wrap out, one of the things that I am, and I say this every show, that I am addicted to is joy. I get it. As entrepreneurs, we have things that are completely gross and disgusting and things that don't make us happy as far as the experiences that we have, whether it be, what we had to do, meet in between sales, what we had to do when someone left our life because they were as frustrated as we are about the business that they couldn't see. So all of those things are real. We got it. But something that's motivational for me is, what could all this one day do if I just don't quit? if I just keep at it, what could happen? So, with that being said, I would love for you to tell us at least a story or about something that you either acquired or experienced as a result of having a business that is seven figures.
So I think that, what you mentioned in terms of what you want to do versus what you have to do, right? That is a big deal, and that allows you, once you get to this level. So the way I see it is that seven figures is the proof that you have an offer that people want to give you money for, right? That's the proof. So you can scale to seven figures. So it's not easy, but it's relatively simple. You just need to do more of what you're doing to get that first money in. You just need to offer it to more people, right? Once you get to seven figures, I think that right now you have I would say the power or the resources to start building a small team and hiring a small team, and that team can free you up to do the things that you're really good at, right? My zone of genius, for instance, is marketing, advertising, building funnels and that type of stuff, and running campaigns. That's my zone of genius. So whenever I'm dedicated to that, I have joy, I feel focused, I'm in the flow and whatnot. Now, we are 26 at the company right now. So one of the best decisions that I've ever did was to just put a general manager in place, and she takes care of running the show, basically. She takes care of running the team, she takes care of the processes and making sure that the clients are happy. So that's her job. That's her role description, which is basically everything that I really suck at. Everything that has to do with dealing with the team, dealing with people drama, putting together the operations, I'm not good at. So that allows you to, like having this type of business allows you to start putting people in place that are better than you at those things that you don't really want to do, right? Because if you think, oh my God, I need to do the accounting, or I need to do cold calling, or whatever that is, and you don't really enjoy it, then probably there's somebody out there that if all they could do all day was cold calling, they will be, super happy, right? So you can find that person and put that in there, and that's a great fit. But I think that comes to be once you put enough reps into what you don't really like, right? If something you don't really like to do, but you put enough reps in, then you already know how to do it. So by the time you can have somebody to come and do it, you already know how to do it. So you transfer your brain into that person, and boom, you have a great process to do it. So I think that entrepreneurship is also learning to have joy and feeding on those things that are hard, right? And understanding that the process is sometimes, and the progress is sometimes invisible. You just need to show up and put in the reps, and then eventually at some point it all clicks. But it might take a long time. That's why entrepreneurship is hard and it takes time, but it's so worth it.
So, Hernan, what I got from that is do what you have to do until you can do what you want to do.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
definitely one thing I got taken away. And then the other is seven figures allows you to go from a place that sucks to a place that you can scale. Like that's what seven figures allows you to do. And I definitely understand all of that. I am getting there myself. We are at the Wells Bar, we are 4 clients away from hitting our first seven figures. So nice. I completely get it. And I'm ready for the scaling part. So I can hire a team, a C-suite team. I already have half of them identified already. Like I am so ready for this. So without further ado, as we wrap up this, please let everyone know the best place for them to learn more if they would like to inquire or get more information about how your business at Scale Driven can support them in their business.
Yeah, for sure. So scaledriven.com is the fastest way to do it. We have a little message there. We have a really specific way that we work with clients. We don't charge any monthly retainers, any monthly anything. We partner up with them, right? So that's, scaledriven.com. And then we also put out a decent amount of content, helpful content for people that might not be there yet to engage with us, so that they can get there and then they can engage with us. So Hernan Vazquez in all socials, or Scale Driven in all socials, you'll find me, and you're welcome to take a look at that content too.
Awesome. So you heard it. Go to scaledriven.com. I say again, go to scaledriven.com. In the event that you aren't able to write that down, please know if you go to the show notes, that link will be there available for you, and it isn't going anywhere. So that is available. But so please reach out to Hernan and Hernan's team at scaledriven.com. Hernan, it has been a pleasure. I am very grateful that you have taken time, you have chosen to invest your time into us today to learn more about the purpose of digital marketing and your journey of getting to seven figures. And I applaud you. If no one's ever said that they were proud of you, I am proud of you for everything that you have created for yourself as well as your team. For those of you who